know you worry, baby, sometimes. Maybe, baby, you were right. I know you worry, baby, sometimes. Maybe, baby, you were right. I can see for miles the same old line, the same old line, the same old line, the same old line. There is no angel above the grid. Maybe, baby, this is it. A diamond swallowed shit, swallowed a kid, swallowed a kid, swallowed a kid, swallowed a kid.
Scarefest Radio is sponsored by Spirit Mechanics for your spiritual health and well-being. Find them on Facebook. MECHANIX. And by Coyote Chris Sutton, bringing light to the darkest places. CoyoteChris.com.
The opinions, viewpoints, and beliefs presented on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the management, the affiliates and broadcast partners, or the sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Scarefest!
The guests of Scarefest Radio are selected and scheduled independently of the Scarefest Horror and Paranormal Convention. Appearances on this program do not necessarily reflect the itinerary of the convention.
The unusual, the weird, the strange, the bizarre, and the controversial. Nothing is off limits.
And hello everyone and welcome to Scarefest Radio. Original broadcast date is April 20th, 2018, and I am so happy to be back in my little studio here. Remote broadcast. The last week's episode does not exist. There was not enough audio out of the local recording, what broadcast, even the video. I even had a video camera that was independent of everything, and the audio shut off. The entire thing shut off like halfway through the episode. It was not meant to be. But we're back from Mama Ruby's Holistic Mystic Expo. I can't even say it now. Mystic Expo. We're back in good old Cynthiana, Kentucky, back here on the farm. We're in the studio, and our guest tonight is Summer Jones. She did a documentary on involving the Ouija board, or as we say in Kentucky, Ouija, and I've been told either way is right, so that's really cool. Things I want to cover before we get started with Summer. Last week, because the audio was so bad, and I don't think they ever even put it on Facebook, we did have celebrity announcements. Coming to Scarefest 2018, Scarefest Chapter 11, Scarefest Rebirth, Kim Russo, the Tennessee Wraith Chasers, Philip Christopher Saint and Rachel Marie Booth, and Victoria Price. So those were our celebrity announcements. I think most people were able to glean that from the context of the conversation last weekend. But I just wanted to go ahead and get that out there. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. And we've added some stuff to the studio here to try to give you a better listening appearance. And somebody already says, Summer, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
Everyone, if you missed the introduction, Summer is, she did a documentary on the Ouija, Do you prefer Ouija or Ouija?
Either way is fine. I usually just say Ouija just because that's how I, pronounced it as a kid.
It's funny. I always thought that sounded so odd, but after I actually brought it up to Robert Murch, who was involved with your project, and he said, "Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's all good." First thing I got to call you on the carpet on. What's this bullshit that I can only watch this on Amazon Prime UK?
That's one way to watch it. Another way is through my website, talkingboardmovie.com, which basically
it is on there.
Yeah, it just links you to Vimeo basically, and you can watch it that way as well.
Oh, okay. Well, see, I could have actually watched the entire thing then. I pulled up the page, and right at the top it says watch on Amazon Prime UK. I said, well, son of a bitch, but because I've spent all this money on all these video services, and they never have what I want to watch. But anyway, so after the fact, I will get to watch it. Everybody, at the beginning of the show, if you were on the video feed, you should have been able to see the trailer, or one of the trailers, for the movie that we're discussing tonight, which is Yes, No, Goodbye. Did I get out the whole title in there? Yeah, Yes, No, Goodbye. That's the name of the documentary, which is, of course, about the infamous Ouija board. Now, first thing, the history of the Ouija. I mean, this came out as a parlor game, pretty much. It's always had some connotations that some of the religious communities weren't crazy about. But was there any real negative connotations in the public realm before The Exorcist came out? Is that when it really became a negative thing that people thought about it?
Yeah, I mean, through the research I did and talking with folks like, Bob Murch, like you had mentioned, who is like the Ouija expert, it was really like late 60s, 70s where, different types of tools like spiritualism and things like that surrounding, anything paranormal. That's when it was like, no, we're not doing that. We're good Christians. We don't touch that stuff. And The Exorcist kind of set the Ouija board over the edge in terms of it being like this demonic tool, thanks to Hollywood.
Now here's the thing though. Now I'm into the paranormal thing, but I'm really torn on the Ouija board because I know at the end of the day, it's basically especially if you buy a modern one, it's a piece of really, really cheap plywood with a little plastic planchette. And I find it hard to wrap my head around this board being intrinsically evil. That being said, in the paranormal field, one of the things that I work on a lot is helping families that have had paranormal problems. And I cannot tell you how many times that the words Ouija board come up in this conversation.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a matter of intent, a matter of proper usage? Why do so many people use the Ouija board and never have any negative consequences? Then other people, it seems like the walls start bleeding.
Right. The walls start bleeding. I really wish that had happened to me when I used the Ouija board. I feel like I tried everything in my power to make something like that extravagant happen. It's like you, I'm like on the fence. I'm like, it's this tool. It's been around. So many people have had experiences. I personally never had experience. Why is that? But I think what it is, and just to put it just very simply, intent is one thing. Also, I think people get spooked easily. As you're in the paranormal, you've been on investigations, I'm sure, and you understand that, like, when you go into a place and people say, wow, my house is haunted, and you go, well, actually, that's the wind, or well, actually, that's an old floorboard and it creaks because of expansion, and hot and cold weather, that kind of thing. So, it's the people that don't I guess, understand the science behind why it can work, and they get spooked and they immediately think, oh my God, this is something bad. And, they go right to, probably those in the back of their mind, the Hollywood stuff, Ouija's bad. Like there's the Ouija board movie that just came out, a couple of years ago. And then before that, Exorcist. It just has this total bad rap. And when it actually, quote unquote, works for someone, I feel like in the back of their mind, they immediately turn to, oh, it's bad. It's a bad ghost. It's a demon or what have you.
Now, personally, here's my view on it. Actually, I do want to ask, okay, now you actually said the science of how it can work. The only thing I know is the ideomotor effect.
Sure.
Okay, which for the listeners, inside baseball, that is your body's involuntary reaction to a perceived stimulus, to put it very, very generically. It's the same thing that makes you cry when you watch Old Yeller. So that kind of out there. Now I'm a dowser. I don't play with the Ouija board, but I am a dowser. And the ideomotor effect, I believe, is exactly why they work. But I do believe there is an outside stimulus in most cases. So I don't have a big problem. Is there anything beyond that I should know about science and the Ouija board?
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, that's one way that the Ouija board can work. I actually worked with the scientists from Denmark who came to Baltimore, which is where the Ouija board basically was developed, to the Ouija board conference that happened a couple of years ago. And their thesis to get their research project to become doctors in psychology, they surrounded it around the Ouija board and how it works, and how they basically believe that it's how your connection is between you and the other person you're using it with. So for example, if I use it with somebody I am romantically attracted to, there's a very good possibility the Ouija board will work a lot better, because we both want probably similar things if we're both attracted to each other. That's sort of one route. So there's this psychology behind it. It's how you and your partner feel about each other. It influences how the Ouija board actually works. And their whole project, their whole research project was about that. And there's a scene in the movie where my good friend Alejandro and I actually wear goggles and electrodes while we're using the Ouija board together. And the Ouija board is working while we're using it together. And it's not that we're romantically attracted to each other, but we're very close. We're very good friends. Whereas when I used it with a stranger, it didn't really work at all. And so I think there's, like you said, there's that outside force. I don't know that that's paranormal, but it is something outside of a physiological thing. It's more of a mental or emotional connection that you have with the partner that you're using it with.
Well, now I will say in the paranormal, one field of study is that we create the ghost. In other words, there are no actual ghosts running about, stomping around in your attic in the middle of the night. But when we go ghost hunting, we are creating thought forms that actually can produce evidence.
Yeah.
So, now do I buy into that? Only a little bit. But at the same time, so you're saying that at least one scientific explanation says that something does happen, but it may not be what we think is happening. But it is still a really cool effect that you can't just go, psh.
Exactly. It's not necessarily, me or whoever talking to a ghost or like my dead grandma or whoever. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm saying there's evidence and research that shows that it's not just the ideomotor effect, that it's much more complicated than that. So, I'm definitely a skeptic. I'm a scientist. I have a degree in science. I'm very science focused. However, when you put in this sort of subconscious and the psychological aspects of it, it's just overwhelmingly evident that it's way more complicated than my body moving the planchette, without me really like thinking about it. It's way more complicated than that. But on the other side of that, it's like, is it the ghost pushing it? I find that a lot harder to believe than a spiritual connection I have with my partner while I'm using the Ouija board. I find that a little more easier to digest, I guess, than a ghost coming in and moving it, or a demon, or whatever you want to call that unseen force.
Well, let's not call him demon just yet. So now from the chat room, our Brandon, who could not be with us to co-host tonight because he's a breeder and has a crying baby in the background. One of his points was, can anything produced by Hasbro be really evil? And he said, then he answers his own question, well, other than Monopoly. I have seen more damage come from Monopoly games than I have from Ouija boards. So right there, let's just get that out of the way. But now we will jump ahead, though, and he asked another good question that probably would, if I would save it for the end of the show, but I will forget it. In your studies, is there a proper way to dispose of a Ouija board based on myth and legend? What is the proper way? If I realize, okay, from a scientific standpoint, you throw the damn thing in the garbage. I get that. But if somebody actually is in that mindset where this is, a mystical device, what is the proper way to dispose of one?
Sure. There's actually a couple things you can do. One way is if you want to get rid of a Ouija board you think is, too spooky or evil, or you just don't want it anymore, send it to me, please. I will take it. I love Ouija boards. I love the art behind them. It's a piece of Americana. I will take it. Also, the alternative is the Talking Board Historical Society. They are the authority on all things spirit board related. They will also take your Ouija boards. They will put them in their museum or put them in their collection, whatever. Other folks believe that you can have clergy bless your Ouija board. Whatever your sort of religious beliefs are, you can have somebody bless it, and they can either take it away for you or bless it so that it's no longer quote unquote bad or evil. It's just really what you believe, on that end. But there's definitely ways to get rid of it. Some people say don't burn them, that it'll come back to you. As part of my film, I burned several Ouija boards in the fire, and I'm here. Nothing bad has happened to me. It's kind of at your discretion how you want to handle it. But, like I said, instant message me. I'll take your Ouija board. I love them.
Now, for the record, the one I have disposed of, we burned. So that it worked fine for me. And it was to close out a case. It's not that I didn't like the Ouija board. You wouldn't one of these anyway. They were homemade. They were like really, and I think that just added to the entire cluster that was involved in the case. Okay, now I need to go ahead and get to my first commercial break, everybody. You're listening to Scarefest Radio. My guest tonight is Summer Jones, and we will be right back. Do you feel lost in life? Do you seem to be stuck in emotions that are not yours? Is your home not the sanctuary it should be? Contact Spirit Mechanics, where they take a team approach to your metaphysical and spiritual problems. Spirit Mechanics specializes in aura cleansing, stone attunement, attachment removal, and house cleansings. Spirit Mechanics tailors their approach to your individual spiritual path and needs. Find them every month at Lexington, Kentucky's Mystical Fair, mysticalfairlex.com, or on Facebook by searching Spirit Mechanics. That's MECHANICS. Spirit Mechanics, for your spiritual health and well-being. And we're back with more Scarefest Radio. We do not have any guest announcements tonight, other than where I recapped the tragedy that was last week's episode. Now, I do have, however, an important announcement. Ticket prices to Scarefest 2018 are getting ready to go up. And when I say getting ready to go up, I mean as in tomorrow. So if you want to get in on last year's price, you need to buy your tickets tonight. Golden is going up to $115. 3-day is up $65. That means winning a 3-day pass on Scarefest Radio is now a $65 value. Friday's passes will be $25, Saturday $35, Sunday $25. Now, one thing they've added this year, I don't think they did in the past, at least not openly, I don't know. A lot of people will, like, one person will have the VIP pass, and then they'll, like, hook up at the, no, I mean, they have a friend or a buddy that has a ticket, but they don't have the VIP ticket. They will sell, if you have a golden ticket, you may buy a VIP party pass for your friend, buddy, date, woman you met in the parking lot, whatever the hell. Not my problem. But that will only, you will have to have one of the VIP tickets, a golden pass in other words, to purchase one of those. Yeah, if you got VIP clearance for the party, you will be able to buy a buddy pass this year just to clear that up. So, but those, although that's new, but everything else, it's going up. So if you were holding off on buying your tickets, it's going to cost you a couple extra bucks if you don't go ahead and do it tonight. Getting back to our guest, Summer Jones. Okay, Summer, on the little clip, the preview that we played at the beginning of the show, the 5 rules of the Ouija. Now, first of all, the first one I never really thought about. You'd think I would know this, being in the paranormal. Never use a spirit board alone. Where does that come from? That honestly, I've heard most of the others, but that one I had never really heard anybody say don't use it alone.
Yeah, when I came up with these 5 rules, it was at the beginning of my project, and it was really sparked by people having this sort of there was like this taboo around it. So I said, what are the things that people are most afraid of? And that's when I was, went to Google, I went to Talking Board Historical Society, looked at some of the things that they were talking about. And, to be honest, I think the don't use it alone rule is because it won't work if you use it alone. Like I mentioned earlier, the board works a lot better when you have a partner, especially a partner that you have a sort of connection with, whether romantically or friendship or whatever it is. It works so much better. I've used the board alone, hundreds and hundreds of times and never did it work. So I really think that rule stems from, just the fact that it just doesn't work very well when you use it alone. So, I don't think it's a scary, quote unquote, scary rule. I just think it's more of a practical rule, try to use it with a partner.
So it's not a Bloody Mary in the bathroom mirror type rule.
Maybe somebody wanted that sort of, thing or like surrounding that rule, but I don't know about you. I've tried Bloody Mary too, and that never worked for me. So, yeah.
See, it's funny. Okay, there are things that I will not do, and I will walk in any building, and I've been in Bobby Mackey so many times that my listeners are tired of hearing about it. Nothing scares me when I walk into a location. But then again, there are things that I will not do, and one of them is because I do have a belief structure that there are nasty little things lurking in the corners, I don't taunt them. And things like that, it's just like that. To me, that sounds so stupid. For a big, burly man like me not being willing to go into the bathroom alone and challenge the mystical things. So maybe I'm not all I'm cracked up to be. Now this one I'd heard and I understand a little, but rule number 2, never use it in a graveyard. Now I'm going to ask this in this way. I want to know what's behind this, because if your purpose is to talk to dead people, other than the graveyard attracting like really low life dead people, in other words, it just got no place better to go. Why not use it in a graveyard?
Yeah, so that rule is, I kind of lump it together with the don't use it alone rule. I don't think it's going to work in a graveyard. Whoever's buried in a graveyard, I don't know about you. I've been to a lot of graveyards, and they are the best. They're super peaceful. I've never been attacked or had any, sort of negative experiences there. It's all very peaceful. And these people are at rest, regardless of whatever your religious background is and what you believe happens when you die. Graveyards are wonderful. They're beautiful. There's great sculptures. Using it in a graveyard, for me, in that rule, it's again, practicality. I don't think it's going to work any better in a graveyard. So that rule that I found that I was researching, I think someone just said, ooh, a graveyard's a really creepy place. Don't use it there. You don't want, spirits coming after you. And it's like, well, that's the whole point of using the Ouija board, is to talk to spirits. But I wouldn't do it in a graveyard. I'd do it somewhere, like Bobby Mackey or wherever, somewhere that's like very happening and popping off, like, ghosts are running around here and, people see them all the time. Not the lady in white graveyard story that every single town has, which is, maybe real, maybe not. It's just graveyards are inherently creepy. And the rule is, don't use it in a creepy place because you're going to get freaked out. So, for me, practicality, doesn't make sense to use it there. It probably won't work.
See, now, I don't have a big problem believing that some graveyards, not all graveyards, that graveyards can be haunted, because I can picture somebody who's really stuck on themselves following their body to the graveyard and then like not being able to believe that, oh my God, my beautiful face is now 6 foot under, and hanging around for the hell of it. Like I said, not the most high vibration type ghost would be there, but at the same time, I don't have but you did bring up one point that I want to touch on. You said about using Bobby Mackey's. Now here's my itchy trigger finger thing about the Ouija board. It's not that I don't give them any credence as a spirit communication device. I feel, though, like in that world, for me, using a Ouija board is the equivalent of posting your birthday party on Craigslist. You might get the right crowd, you might not get the right crowd. I worry more because, first of all, ghosts are liars. I'm sorry, even the good ones. They will lie their ass off. So that's my thing about using it in a place like mine, and I'm sure plenty of people have, is that, just as you alluded to in the graveyard, I like to use it in some place that I feel is I'm going to run into the right type of people, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's fair. If you want a positive experience, maybe don't go to the devil worshiper's house, right? Maybe go somewhere a little more.
Exactly.
Right. So yeah. So maybe Bobby Mackey's is a not a great example. There's a lot of weird stuff there. But like for me, I volunteer on the USS Hornet, which is a very haunted World War II aircraft carrier here in San Francisco. I use the Ouija board there all the time. And it's because I feel very comfortable there. I know it's a very active place. The spirits there are super, these guys are heroes on the Hornet. Never once have I felt scared for my, well-being, excuse me, or anything like that. So I think, the right place is definitely important, especially if you feel comfortable where you are. I think you're gonna have just much better experience all around. You're gonna be more open to receiving messages. The people you're giving messages are going to be more open. So, yeah, it's all about where you're using it. To me, going back to the graveyard, that's just like a really boring place to use that tool for me.
Now, several things you've said, you've alluded to there so you do believe it is, now we're talking belief here, not what you can prove to me, but your belief. You do believe that you can use the spirit board to communicate with what we would call ghost. Now, even if you want to be fuzzy on the definition of ghost, do you believe it is a legitimate tool for a person?
Yeah, I think there's something to it. Whether we're talking to quote unquote a ghost or not, that's a whole other thing. But does the planchette move, specifically pushing it, or my partner pushing it? I believe that to be true. I believe the spirit board, something happens when you use it in sort of these like right scenarios, right place, right time, whoever's coming through, whatever's coming through. I believe it does work. I think you can talk to things that are, quote unquote, not human, I guess.
Now, the next one's a big one, everybody. The next one's a big one. Theologically, never ask if God is real. What's up with that?
So, again, this is one of my research questions that are sort of rules that come up. So I think that one is definitely pointed towards people who are very religious. I think you kind of touched on it earlier where you said, you don't necessarily always know who you're talking to on the other side of that board. So maybe you're talking to a spirit or whatever, and it gives you an answer that they're trying to trick you or mess with you or whatever. And so when you ask a question like, "Is God real?" and they give you an answer that you're not expecting, I mean, that could be very traumatizing to a certain type of person. And very scary. And maybe that's the type of person that says, "Oh my God, my Ouija board is possessed by the devil. I need to burn it, or I need to call Summer and give her my board and take it away because all these bad things are going to start happening to me." So again, I think that rule is geared towards someone who could be very religious and maybe not understand the ins and outs of sort of the paranormal world and how, maybe you're not talking to the person or entity or whatever you want to call it. Maybe you're not talking to that thing that you think you're talking to. Maybe you're talking to something else that is trying to mess with you, mentally or what have you. So.
Well, I would add that even if you're talking to who you think you're talking to, I just really think that sometimes they get really bored and want to yank our chain. And if they thought for an instant that saying there is no God would yank our chain, they would go for it they wouldn't have a heartbeat, but you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
Now, let's tell you what, I'm just a little off time here, so I'm going to go ahead and play our next commercial break. If I can get my computer working here. There it goes. All right. Everybody, you're listening to Scarefest Radio.
Coyote Chris Sutton.
Shamanism.
Spiritual advisement.
Paranormal investigations.
Inspirational presentations.
Bringing light to the darkest places for over 20 years. Go to CoyoteChris.com to learn more. And we're back. That's our short break. We do need to do our 3-day fast. We're at the half-hour mark. We always try to do it around the halfway mark. So, let's do it on the Facebook group page. Towards the top of the page, I don't know what else has been posted, but you will see where I posted tonight's banner with the heading Almost Showtime. Almost Showtime. If on that you would post, let's see, what would be a good one for tonight? I know, because it's going to be my next question before we continue with the list. Green goggles. Green goggles, everybody. The context will be made clear here in a moment. But the first person that I see comment on tonight's banner, where I posted that it's almost showtime, comment on that banner in the Facebook Scarefest Horror Paranormal group page. Let's see, that is the Scarefest Horror Fandom Celebrity and Halloween Expo. Green goggles. And the question over to you, there's two or three different pictures. It was in the video clip, and then it's even on the webpage. What's up with the green goggles?
Yeah, so I mentioned it kind of earlier, where I met the Dutch scientists, and essentially the goggles were these pupil trackers. So the experiment was when you use the Ouija board, they were recording how your pupil changes as you're using it with your partner, and your heart rate's being or the information on your heart rate, your temperature, all of that is being recorded. And the goggles are literally, it's a little camera pointing right at your pupil. And as you're using the Ouija board, your pupil is changing, opening and closing, depending on how your level of excitement is and how you are reacting to your partner. So it was probably the most sciencey thing I've ever done with the Ouija board. It was amazing. And all of that was being recorded to a computer that was being used, that data was being analyzed by the researchers for their doctorate, for their program. And I know that they compiled all that information from, tons of people using the Ouija board to try and get this correlation between the physiological reactions and psychological reaction, all of that stuff, and put into their research project. So yeah, those goggles were insane. Nothing like having a little camera pointed right at your eyeball for 2 hours.
That's actually how I feel right now. So the experiment, you're telling me that that it decided this was the pupil dilation and movement was a result of an emotional state, but they had no reason to believe it was from external forces.
Correct. So these were hardcore scientists, and they were definitely taking the scientific approach, where they were trying to correlate the movement of the planchette with accelerated heart rate, pupil dilation, and the questions as well. Like there were some control questions, what's your name? Spell out your name, and very simple yes, no questions to have these sort of very controlled, in this very controlled environment that they could use to sort of track that data through hundreds of participants. And so I asked that same question, okay, I totally get the ideomotor effect, I get the psychological stuff, but are you 100% certain it's not a ghost pushing the planchette? And their answer was very simple and very honest. There was no evidence of that. And I said that, that's fair. Capturing evidence of a ghost is like the holy grail, right? So, it's a fair response from a scientist to say, look, I'm not telling you yes or no. I'm just saying there's no evidence of it.
No, I like that answer. I like it when they word it like that. They're trying to let you down gently. But at the same time, how much evidence do you want? No, that works into it, because once again, it's really hard to, when you can't see the outside stimulus. In other words, same with dowsing rods or with a Ouija planchette. I do not believe that the ghost is putting his finger on the planchette and moving it about the table. My belief, and with dowsing rods, no, they're not grabbing the ends of the rods or anything like that. I do believe that they are manipulating energy in such a way that we react to it. And once they figure out how we're going to react, then yes, we can get words and everything else. So that, I mean, but that's, once again, everyone, that's belief. That is nothing I can prove to you. So don't write it down. The moving on, never use a Ouija if you're a non-believer. Well, that takes all the fun out of it.
Right. That's a very, very simple rule. If you don't believe it's going to work, why are you using it? Right? Like if you're not focusing, you're not trying to be open to the possibility of it working, then there's literally no point. There's just no point.
Okay, yeah. I see that because I tell people all the time. See, that was one of the things when I started ghost hunting. Everybody, all these people that were in the know, were telling me, you have to leave your beliefs at the door. And I thought I was a failure for a while because I couldn't do it. But it's more, I tell people it's if you're a skeptic, I think when you go into the field, you have to put a certain amount of suspension of disbelief. You have to be ready to accept the experiences. You have to, or otherwise you won't notice them.
Right. Absolutely.
So it's less about, yeah, if you're a cynic, you don't have a chance. A skeptic can at least put that aside maybe and get some results. Have you ever, on that note, have you ever come across anybody who said, I did not believe that the Ouija was anything until?
Oh yeah, that person would be me. I'll tell you really, okay, this story is going to probably make me seem like a total crazy person, how it sounds if you don't know me. But okay, so when I started this project, I was like, yeah, the Ouija board doesn't work. It's never worked for me. I just don't see how, like you said earlier, it's a piece of cardboard and a piece of plastic. Like, come on, like there's no way this thing frickin' works. Until dun dun dun. So I go to Baltimore for the 125th anniversary of the Ouija board to learn more about it for this project. Cause I'm a skeptic, you know, when I started this, total non-believer. And then I become a skeptic cause I'm like, you know what? Like that's when you're a ghost hunter, you tell people to keep an open mind. So for me to be like, oh no, it never works. I'm doing the exact opposite of what I tell other people. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give it a chance. So I go to Baltimore and I meet this guy, this like, you know, 65, 70-year-old man. And he's got his own Ouija board that he had made. And, the planchette was actually like a shot glass, like a beaker almost. And, I'm looking at it. I'm like, wow, I've never seen a Ouija board like that. He's like, yeah, I made it myself. It works awesome. And I'm like, yeah, sure it does. He's like, no, come over and try it. So I try it with him and I never met this guy before in my life. And, I was like, okay, you know, spell my name and I'll totally believe you. So of course the Ouija board or his Ouija board spells my name immediately. Well, my name is Summer, but I don't spell it with a U. So it immediately spelled it S-O-M-M-E-R. So I was like, okay, that's bizarre. Maybe he has seen me on social media, but this is an older guy. I don't know. So I'm like, you know, still skeptical. So then I say, okay, spell my grandmother's name. And sure enough, it spells her name. And her name is Esther. It's not Mary. It's not Sarah. It's not this like really common name. And it spells it immediately. And I'm like, holy crap. Like maybe this is really working. So then I'm like, okay, one final test. So I bring my friend over and I'm like, hey, Brendan, come over here. And I'm touching the planchette, not Brendan. So it's me using it with this other guy. And I say, spell Brendan's middle name. And boom, it spells it, Patrick. Like immediately. It wasn't like over an hour, you know, maybe it's a P, maybe it's an A. No, it was like immediately Patrick. And I look at Brendan and I go, oh my God, I didn't know what your middle name was. So I know it wasn't me. And it was just like that. And so I asked this guy, I'm like, wow, how does your Ouija board work so well? And he says, I kid you not, that his spirit guide pushes the planchette, and his spirit guide is an alien, is a dead alien. So I'm like, wait, okay, so the planchette's being moved not only by a ghost, but an alien ghost. And he's like, yep, I know it sounds weird, but it's true. And I'm like, okay. So,
Now, here's how warped my mind is. I have less trouble believing that his spirit guide is a dead alien than it's a dead alien that can spell.
right.
Because, now, I know that's in the instructions. I have a Ouija board back here somewhere, and I know that's in the instructions. Ghosts are notoriously bad spellers.
Sure, right.
You really put them up against the test there, young lady.
I did. I mean, spelling my name, I thought for sure he had heard my name at the conference or something and would spell S-U-M-M-E-R. And no, it was like immediately S-O-M-M-E-R. And I was like, wow, this is insane. This is completely insane. So, that was like the turning point for me with the whole project. I was like, okay, I need to be way more open-minded about where this is heading, because there's so many people out there that believe so many things and have experienced so many things. To just say right off the bat, no, there's no way that works. It's plastic and cardboard. I was that person, and now I'm more in the middle and more towards believing that, yeah, there's something to it for sure.
I do need to point out, everyone, that no one has yet won our 3-day pass. I'm looking at the banner right now. Just click the one comment, and it had nothing to do with it. One more commercial break. We'll be right back with our final segment. Tarot reading. The very idea intimidates many people. Life guidance from beyond? Mystic hokum. Messages straight from the devil himself. Who the hell knows? With a really bad tarot card reading, you don't have to worry about any of that. My really bad tarot card readings are fun yet insightful. Spewing pop psychology, I bullshit my way through it straight from what many might call a warped mind. I have no training. I have no real marketable talent. Hell, I haven't even read the instructions. But they're cheap, they're fun, and as I always say, I might be wrong. Find my really bad tarot card readings at paranormalfiller.com. And our final segment of Scarefest Radio, our guest tonight is Summer Jones, and we're talking Ouija boards. Yes, No, Goodbye is the name of the documentary. One last thing here that was in our top 5 points. Now, this one, I kind of believe, but I want to see if you've got a different reason for it than I do. Never leave the planchette without saying goodbye. Never leave it on the board without saying goodbye. Is that just good manners, or is there something behind that?
Well, there's sort of two different things going on here. So a lot of people believe if you are using the board and then you get spooked and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not using this anymore, and you leave the planchette on the board without saying goodbye to the spirit you're talking to, people believe that spirit can actually either manifest or grow stronger, or if they're malevolent, attack you, all these sort of negative things. So that's one belief system. For me, I think it's just plain rude. So if I'm talking to someone, I'm like, hey, how's it going? Spell this, spell that. And I'm like, bye. I just leave and I don't say goodbye. I mean, that's just come on. I wouldn't want to talk to someone like that. I'd say, you know what? F that lady. I'm never talking to her again. I'm going to tell all my ghost buddies, never talk to her again. So for me, it's on a personal level, it's just rude. You should say hello. You should say good thank you. You should say goodbye. And then there's that group of people that think wow, if you just leave a planchette or a board open, that all these other spirits and negative energy and things like that can just keep coming through, almost like opening a portal, if you believe that kind of thing.
That's where my superstition, if you will, is. Always close your session. Of course, I believe the same thing with the ghost box. I believe if you're talking to them on a little Hack Shack radio, when you're done, close the connection. Don't leave doors open. Don't leave your cell phone on. I mean, it's same principle. Well, we're at the end of the show. Let's get some plugs in here. First of all, YesNoGoodbyeMovie.com. YesNoGoodbyeMovie.com. And I have been instructed that you can, in fact, watch the documentary from there.
Absolutely. TalkingBoardMovie.com. Yes, No, Goodbye Movie at Facebook. There's all these different avenues. If you go to Vimeo and you type in Talking Board Movie, you'll find our movie. It's all over Facebook. It's all over Twitter. Spirit Board Film on Twitter. There's definitely different ways. If you have listeners out in the UK, it's on Amazon. It's coming to Amazon US, Wes, as you were pointed out. It was only UK. It is coming to US. It's just a much lengthier process to get your film on Amazon in the United States. But it should be there, I'd say, probably sometime mid-May. If you guys are, Amazon Prime people, it will be available for Prime members for free. But definitely go to the website, talkingboardmovie.com. That's the easiest way to learn about the film and watch trailers and clips, and you can rent it for $4. So see all the crazy things we did in the movie to kind of experiment with Ouija boards, and all the travels, like all the cool people we met, like Chip Coffey, psychic medium, Bloody Mary in New Orleans, Christian Grey. He's Christian Day. Christian Grey is from that other movie. Christian Grey, he's a warlock in New Orleans and from Salem. So we get all this like great advice from all these people in the paranormal world and how to use Ouija boards. So check it out and hit me up on Facebook, especially if you've got a Ouija board you want to get rid of. I'll take it. I love them. They're beautiful pieces of art, and I'm open to them.
Now, one final question that I have, I want to just to straighten out my timeline here. Now, when you undertook this project, you were not a big. You said you were a skeptic. Were you a fan at that point? When you started the project? Where did you fall into the rainbow of Ouija board enthusiasts?
So when I started the project, I had my first Ouija board when I was 8 years old. My grandma bought one for me because I thought it looked cool. It never worked for me, but I liked the way that I liked the artwork. I liked the lettering. So I always thought of it as a piece of art, really. And then, total non-believer until I got invited to be a part of another documentary. And, these people in this documentary, they were ghost hunting, and I was like, ooh, let's do something really scary. Let's use a Ouija board. And everyone flips out. They're like, oh my God, Summer, how dare you suggest that? I'm like, wait, I was kidding. Like, why are you guys so scared? And so, that's like really sparked this whole thing. So it definitely started as a non-believer, and then the curiosity just exploded as I started learning more about the history, traveling to Baltimore, talking to Talking Board Historical Society, and then learning from all these other folks, in the paranormal world about the taboos, not just about Ouija boards, but about like other belief systems, voodoo and witchcraft and like all the taboos surrounding all of these different things that people immediately go, oh man, that's scary. It's like, why do we have that? And that was really the curiosity that built up in this film. So, started as a non-believer, went to skeptic, and now I'm leaning towards believer after everything that I've seen and I've tried.
Well, thank you so much, Summer, for joining us on Scarefest Radio tonight, everybody. Been a hell of a show. I think we had reports of technical difficulties, but hopefully everything got recorded, and we'll have a beautiful, beautiful product to present to the listening audience of the affiliates and of the video watchers. So thanks again, everybody. This has been Scarefest Radio.